And get started. We've given people a couple of minutes to grab their cup of coffee. Next time we'll remember maybe to get some music like Hava Nagila, so people aren't just waiting in silence. I thought you are patiently waiting. We're going to give it just a second, and so you can see me a little better, and then I'll go ahead and get started. But again, just thank you for being with us here today. And excited to welcome you all. Good morning, Boker Tov, happy Groundhog Day. And in some ways, it really is Groundhog Day. We are on Zoom again. We are still living, though I would say thriving, while still battling a worldwide pandemic. But it is also different. We have this morning over 300 Jewish Virginians registered from all across the Commonwealth, from Alexandria and Fairfax to Richmond, Charlottesville to Virginia Beach, and many places in between. And that number is a record for us. So what is different? We are welcoming our new governor, lieutenant governor, and Attorney General to our community with a very hearty shalom. Chavarim, hello, friends. My name is Amy Melnick-Scharf, and I serve as chair of the Jewish Community Relations Committee of the Jewish Community Federation of Richmond. To our old friends from all across the Commonwealth, welcome back to Jewish Advocacy Day. And to our new friends, shalom and welcome. Thank you for coming today and being counted. It is so important. Special welcome and greetings to our honored guests this morning, Governor Glenn Youngkin, Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earle-Sears, and Attorney General Jason Miyares. We hope this is the first of many community gatherings and want to recognize all of our partners and co-hosts who come together to bring this wonderful event to all of us here in the Commonwealth. So who are we? Who is hosting you today? We are the Jewish Community Federation of Richmond and its Jewish Community Relations Committee, the United Jewish Federation of Tidewater and its Community Relations Council, the JCRC of Greater Washington, and the United Jewish Community of the Virginia Peninsula and their Community Relations Committee. And of course, our longtime Richmond partner, the wonderful women of Hadassah. As a united Jewish community here in Virginia, we can accomplish great things when we work together. We're truly stronger together when we coordinate, communicate, and collaborate on our key priorities. To our newly elected officials, the Jewish community of Virginia has a long and proud history here. We were members of the Jamestown Colony, which I just learned when I looked it up. And the first congregation in Virginia was formed here in Richmond in 1789. Unfortunately, now, nearly 230 years later, as Governor Youngkin noted on day one of his administration, quote, "Our nation and our Commonwealth have seen an intolerable rise in anti-Semitism in recent years, and Virginians have experienced a record number of anti-Semitic incidents." Thank you to Governor Youngkin and this new administration for recognizing this disturbing new reality, maybe not so new, and establishing the Virginia Commission to combat anti-Semitism. Interesting to note, day one of this new administration and the inauguration also occurred on the same day that 4 people praying inside a synagogue in Colleyville, Texas, including a rabbi, were held hostage in a synagogue for 11 hours simply for being Jewish. This cannot happen in the Commonwealth. So this commission will be a targeted effort to combat the rising threat of anti-Semitism and ensure all Virginians are free to live their lives without the threat of harassment, violence, or discrimination. All of us on the call here today look forward to working with the new administration in any way we can to assist the commission in its work to establish and implement an actionable plan to combat anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial in our Commonwealth. Our other joint priorities include supporting $3 million for the Nonprofit Security Grant Program to protect at-risk communities as proposed in the governor's budget. And 2, oppose boycott, divestment, and sanctions activities launched in the Commonwealth against Israel, the only democracy in the Middle East. And 3, support continued funding for Virginia-Israel Advisory Board. Now, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our new Lieutenant Governor, Winsome Earle-Sears. She's being very generous with her time, but will likely need to leave right after her remarks to preside over the Senate today. Lieutenant Governor Earl Sears, a native of Kingston, Jamaica, immigrated to the United States at the age of 6. She is proud to have served in the United States Marine Corps and has served as the Vice President of the Virginia State Board of Education and as a presidential appointee to the U.S. Census Bureau, as co-chair of the African American Committee and the Advisory Committee on Women Veterans to the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. The Lieutenant Governor was first elected in 2002 to a majority Black House of Delegates district, a first for a Republican in Virginia since 1865. She's the first female Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia and the first Black woman elected to statewide office. One of the most compelling aspects of our Lieutenant Governor's life experience, and one that she is most proud of, is her work leading a men's prison ministry and as director of a women's homeless shelter. I do not yet know you personally, Lieutenant Governor, but I imagine your faith guides your work as our faith guides ours. Our shared principles and values underpin everything we do. We welcome you here to our community, and we look forward to your remarks.
Good morning to you, one and all. Good morning. My name, as you know, is Winsome Earle-Sears, and I have to tell you, I just feel so politically part of the Jewish community because, number one, I love the Jewish community. But I remember 20 years ago when I was first running for office, my then opponent tried to turn the Jewish people against me by saying that I was against the Jewish people. And so I met with the rabbi and some of the members of the synagogue that was part of my district in which I was running. And they said, don't worry about it. We don't believe any of that because we know of your reputation. But here I am 20 years later. And again, I ran for office and I used Psalm 133 from a politician, but a Jewish politician named King David, as my campaign verse. And it says this, how good and pleasant it is when brothers and sisters live together in peace and harmony. And that's the verse that really took us through my campaign, because it was, where can we find the peace and the harmony in these times and in the laws that we're trying to make for Virginians to live under? Now that I've won, I also like to bring in the Jamaican connection to America. And it just so happens that it has a Jewish connection on top of it. So do you know that the oldest synagogue in America, which is in Rhode Island, was actually consecrated by a Jamaican Jewish rabbi? Yes, they sent for him way back in the 16 or 17 whatevers and had him come. And then here's another fun fact. Waco, Texas was started by a Jamaican Jew who, by the way, started the newspaper, the largest newspaper and the oldest in Jamaica, called the Gleaner, which is still surviving to this day. And by the way, his name, Jacob de Cordova, he became the largest landowner in Texas. Isn't that something? And what you don't know, and don't tell anyone, I am going to feature the gentleman, Mr. Rosenwald, for Black History Month. And you know who he is. He helped to bring about 5,300 schools for Black children, because of course, you know, we did not have the opportunities to get an education. And because of him, we have had so many successes in education. And of course, you know, education is near and dear to my heart. So I am here. I want to hear what you have to say. I am so thankful for you, my Jewish brothers and sisters. Let me know the help that I can provide, and please contact my office and come and see us. Come see your house in action. Come see your Senate where I preside in action. We want to recognize you and be sure that people understand this, the many contributions that so many have made to make America who she is. Thank you. I think I lost you.
No. Well, thank you, Lieutenant Governor Earl Sears, for that address and taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us here today. We certainly appreciate it, and we really appreciate those great remarks that you said. I don't know if we have time for a question and answer, Lieutenant Governor.
Let me see, it's 10:14. I have 5 minutes, then I've got to run. I've got preparing.
Okay, there was one question. Oh, I guess we don't have a question. Now checking in our question and answer.
I have a question. Why not?
Yes.
How can the federations help her in her work? Especially, she mentioned Black History Month. We would like to help promote her efforts in honoring Mr. Rosenwald and other efforts as well. What can we do to help?
Well, if you would share on social media the information when I send it, because, you know, we want to acknowledge that we didn't get here by ourselves. And for too long, you know, we're not acknowledging that there have been others who don't look like me who helped Black Americans to become where we are today. And so once I share with him, if you would share that, that would be wonderful, because then we can get rid of some of the hatred and the violence against Jewish people. And I was the one, by the way, 20 years ago, I carried the bill to help us, to protect us from the KKK, because, you know, they hate Black people, Jewish people, and others equally alike. And I carried it for the Republican Attorney General. We got it through. And so, you know, we've just got to learn to love each other. And if the more that we can share how our lives are so intertwined, the better. So I'll be sharing that, I believe, next week, and look out for it, and do share it, and contact me personally, because if you see some bills coming through that you know would be something you can get on board with, something you can support, something you can maybe even come and talk to give advice and expert opinions, please do so as well. And we are looking to, I believe that there are 16 different Rosenwald schools still existing, and I'm gonna have to check that. But we are trying to get some of them refurbished and preserved so that people understand how Jewish Americans participated in helping Black people to get a good education.
Great. Well, thank you for that answer, Lieutenant Governor, and congratulations on your historic and wonderful election inauguration. And we look forward really to working with you in the future. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you all, and have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And good morning to everyone. I'm Herm Shalansky, the chairman of the JCRC of the United Jewish Federation of Tidewater. And I also am happy to be here today with all of you, our Jewish community members from across the Commonwealth. It was great from Lieutenant Governor Earl Sears for her address and taking the time out of her busy schedule to be with us today. You will now be hearing from Attorney General Jason Miyares. We invite you to submit questions in the QA module at the bottom of your screen. We'll do our best to address them if there is time. Mr. Miyares served in the Virginia Assembly from 2015 until he assumed his current role as Attorney General. As a member of the House of Delegates, he spearheaded and brought together broad bipartisan support for the passage of the anti-BDS House Resolution 177 for the Commonwealth. We thank Mr. Miyares for his ongoing support and engagement with the statewide Jewish community. He has been steadfast in his condemnation of anti-Semitism and hate crimes. He's been a strong voice of support while serving in both his current and former role. He has taken the time to understand the many forms of modern anti-Semitism and the danger hate crimes pose not only to the Jewish community, but to all people throughout the Commonwealth. In 2018 and 2019, then delegate Miyares earned the recognition of Legislator of the Year from the College Affordability and Public Trust for his work on transparency and affordability in higher education. Attorney General Miyares previously served on the Virginia Board of Veterans Services and was chairman of the Commission on Economic Opportunity for Virginians and aspiring and diverse communities, working to ensure a bright future for all Virginians, no matter what their background. Prior to and during his time in the House of Delegates, Mr. Miyares practiced as an attorney in Virginia Beach and served as an assistant Commonwealth attorney for the city of Virginia Beach. He attended Virginia Beach Public Schools, earned a business degree from James Madison University and a law degree from the College of William and Mary. He is married to Paige Atkinson Miyares. They live in Virginia Beach with their 3 daughters. It's my pleasure to welcome you today, Attorney General Jason Yarz. Thank you for being with us.
It's great to be with you all, and thank you all. It is it's a little bit different doing things virtual. I have had such great memories of my friends visiting me in the legislature on this day in the General Assembly building, and wearing a different hat now. But it's an honor to serve in this role as Attorney General. If you know anything about me, you know I have a deep interest in what I call the dignity of the individual. My family background, where my mom fled Cuba, literally homeless and penniless, and you get these stories that kind of stick with you, and one of which is the stories of what she saw my uncle being taken in front of her in the middle of the night because he had spoken out against the government. The secret police had showed up, and in Cuba they took him to a baseball stadium, and he went through the humiliation of a mock execution. And so it is not lost to me that when I got sworn in 2 weekends ago, that almost 56 years, around 56 years since my mother left the country with no consent to govern and did not respect the dignity of the individual, that she was able to see me take the oath of office and be the chief law enforcement officer here in the Commonwealth. And so America isn't a perfect nation, but we're a nation of pretty grand ideas. And one of which is the idea that everyone's going to be treated equally under the law, that the dignity of the individual means that you're able to worship God according to the dictates of your conscience, you're able to speak out against your government, and that we're going to have a government that has its consent from the governed and participatory democracy. So I like to joke that nothing in politics moves unless it's pushed. And so first, I want to commend that you are communicating with your legislators and your elected officials, because in particular in the General Assembly session, where you have so much to do in 60 days, and these legislators, of which I was one, you're dealing with 3,000 bills in 60 days. The only time oftentimes that you can take a breath and get your arms around is when people are coming and petitioning and bringing their concerns. I think that's hugely important. I'm proud of the fact that the first legislation that I ever passed that I personally carried was the anti-BDS resolution in 2016. I've always believed, and I've worked with several people on this call, Robin Main call and others, but I've always believed that it's important that Israel is seen as a bipartisan issue. It can't be siloed, because if it becomes a partisan issue, Israel loses. And I've always been a passionate believer of articulating the need that is always a bipartisan issue, and that combating anti-Semitism is a bipartisan issue. You know, I have said before that the political spectrum sometimes isn't so much as left or right. It's like a horseshoe. You go too far this way and you go too far this way. And it's amazing how similar very, very voices either on the angry left or the angry right can be. And one of which is they create distrust in institutions that they used to trust, that the broad public has trust. But one of which is, unfortunately, whether you go the far, far left or the far, far right, the disease of anti-Semitism, I think infects both sides. And so I think it's important, and I think we all recognize the vast, vast, vast majority of Americans are in the middle of that horseshoe and not either extreme. But that has been something that's been both a passion issue for me. I had the honor in 2014, before I was ever elected, actually going on an APAC trip to Israel. I visited Yad Vashem and left an incredible mark on me, not just spiritually, but just at that moment, that inflection point, particularly the children section of Yad Vashem still strikes me to this day. And it really just reconfirmed the need that it is the world's oldest bigotry, and it needs to be vigilant to combat it. I'm proud that Governor Youngkin has introduced Executive Order number 2. I'm actually going to be visiting the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. tomorrow, and I'm going to be presenting the ambassador a copy of the official copy of the executive order on behalf of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so, but it has been wonderful to work alongside and fight for so many of the same values of individual dignity and respect. If there's anything that I've tried to conduct myself as a legislator is respecting even those you could disagree and not be disagreeable. I have really observed, I think everybody on this call has observed, that as our culture has gotten more core, so is our politics. It's been said that our politics is downstream from culture. And I think that all of us probably recognize the need to try to lower the temperature. So to the best of my ability, I have tried to conduct myself with a sense of decorum and respect. I'm not perfect, definitely not, but that's, I think, is important as we discuss really contentious issues. I think it's important to lower the temperature and hopefully try to find bipartisan support. One of my mentors, Scott Ridgel, who was a Marine, and I remember he told me, he said, if you go to Arlington National Cemetery and you walk along those rows of Stars of David and those crosses, there is neither an R nor a D to anyone's name. And so always recognize that maybe someone who disagrees with you on a political issue has given the last full measure of devotion to this amazing country. And that has always stuck with me. And so I think we have a lot of big issues facing our country and facing Virginia, but I think it's important where possible to try to find common ground. And I think that's an important mindset. I think that you should have in your public servants, and I think we need more of it. And but it's an honor to be your Attorney General. It's an honor to stand up for the dignity of the individual, and in my own small way. I'm in a different role than I was as a legislator, but it's a role that is definitely humbling, and I approach the office with a sense of awe. In Proverbs, it says, in abundance of counselors, there's wisdom. I'm a big believer in that. And so some of the people on this call have been great counselors of wisdom for me over the years. And I'm going to continue to count on that moving forward. And just appreciate all the work everyone has done and is doing, and honored to be here with you all.
Attorney General Miyares, thank you for that. I'm going to allow, if there are questions, I'm going to give people the opportunity, if you have time, to ask a question or two. I'm going to just let, if anyone has a question, pop in. If not, I mean, I can start this. What do you think is the most important thing as Attorney General that you are either starting to do or going to be doing over the next 4 years? And I ask that not in a political way, but in a in terms of the important job of the Attorney General.
Well, I mean, I'm going to try to the best of my ability to kind of call balls and strikes of what the law is and not what I hope the law says. And that can be hard in a soundbite age, candidly. Mark Twain once said that a lie can get halfway around the world before the truth puts its pants on in the morning. And I definitely found it a different role, but that is somewhat my experience. And so I've just tried to call balls and strikes and emphasize that I do not replace the legislature. The General Assembly is a duly elected democratic body that represents about 80,000 Virginians, every one of them. And it's their job to pass the laws, and the governor can sign it into law, and then it's my job to enforce it. And so, an example, some of the people are already familiar with the Attorney General's opinion. I was asked to issue an Attorney General's opinion on the vaccine mandate on college campuses. And my emphasis, I try to emphasize, is this is not my opinion of, I'm pro-vaccine, I'm vaccinated, I'm boosted. My wife and my daughters are all vaccinated and boosted. But that's not the issue. The issue is, what does the law say? And 23.1-800 of the Virginia Code lists 6 vaccines that you are required to have before you graduate and attend colleges. And the COVID-19 vaccine wasn't on that list. And so my point in my AG's opinion is, currently it's not on the list. It can be added to the list, use the General Assembly, introduce a bill, and we'll go through the General Assembly. But in the past, with the idea that you could just kind of through a stroke of a pen and not go through a legislative process, I think that's when in my opinion, people get frustrated with government, because there's a democratic process that we have in place. Let's use it. And so that's kind of the way I approach things, is what does the law say? And I think that's going to be just an important mindset that I have as I approach. I think that, and I think candidly, that gives a sense of humility, where my office is not a super legislature. My office is going to look at whoever's in charge in the General Assembly, respect whoever's in charge, and they pass the bills. And so I'm the kind of the chief law enforcement officer, and it's a kind of an interesting intersection of public policy, law, and then civil and criminal. So there's a lot on the criminal side. I'm a big victims' right advocate. Human trafficking is a big issue for me. I just met with the Human Trafficking Task Force on Friday. We have just an amazing collection of federal and state that we're working with on that issue. I think it's a horrific form of modern day slavery. In some ways, it exploits the definition of the most vulnerable. I call it a multi-generational crime, and because it can impact somebody who's gone through the trauma of that. If you ever hear their stories, it's heartbreaking, because it impacts their future, how they relate to their future spouse and their future children, and this complete shattering of a lack of trust. And so, I guess my goal is to both be an attorney general that calls balls and strikes, and this is what the law is, regardless of what I think. And then if I can really be a victims' rights advocate and focus on victims, particularly in the human trafficking realm, that would be, I think, in my opinion, at least for myself, a job well done.
Can you speak to obviously something that's very important to our community, anti-Semitism, anti-Semitic hate crimes? The number are on the rise. What can we do as a community, as a collective, to combat anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic hate crimes that we see more and more, unfortunately, around the country?
Well, I mean, one of them, which is obviously advocacy and raise the issue. And it is, like I said, the world's oldest form of bigotry. But oftentimes unfortunately, I can't tell you why, but sometimes I don't think the media takes it as seriously as perhaps other hate crimes. I think some of it is raising the issue. It is absolutely real. It's been rising, and it's been all over. It is not just, I mean, it is in urban and rural areas that you've seen a rise of anti-Semitism. I think too is, what are the tools in the toolbox that allow myself in my office to go after those that are committing anti-Semitic hate crimes? It's actually going to be on my agenda item when I meet with the ambassador tomorrow, is what he is saying and what other nation states. I'm a big believer that, you know, one of the best guideposts I've had in my life is recognize I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I'm smart enough to know when I hear good ideas. And so, you know, what are other states doing? What are the tools in their toolbox that they've used very effectively? And so I would empower everybody in this room. I don't claim to have all the answers. So if you're saying that, say, Nevada or Florida or a state has a really effective method of you know, I just got briefed yesterday on something Florida is doing on organized retail crime theft, and some of the stuff they're doing I think is innovative. And so we're going to have a conference call to set up to discuss what their AG's office is doing. It's exactly the type of, I think would help me, would be good ideas being brought to me on what other states or just other ideas appeared. Maybe no other states doing it, but this is what Virginia should do. I'm all for it, and all for tackling that and being an advocate, because that goes again to one of my personal issues, which is the dignity of the individual, and respecting the individual. And I think candidly, it's the only way in a diverse society we can all live together, is we respect that I may disagree with you, but you have a fundamental individual right to come to a different conclusion. And I think that's the core of what the dignity of the individual is. So I think all of that means collectively, I would love that. I know that I've talked to Robin about kind of having an anti-Semitism roundtable back in my neck of the woods back home in Hampton Roads, and I'm delighted to do that and replicate that in Northern Virginia and Richmond and others. So yeah, I like to listen and take notes and get good ideas.
So there's a question in, I'm just looking at the Q&A. There's a question in here that asks about the linkage between the Civil Rights Division of your office and what role it can play in combating anti-Semitism, and are there any changes in that division that you anticipate or you've thought through or you're thinking about that could play a role in combating anti-Semitism?
I mean, there's absolutely a role for it. It is a bit amusing for me to be in a different office and seeing how sometimes reporters are more interested in breaking a story than getting it right. I had somebody, a state senator that never checked with me, never checked with my office, tweeted out that I had somehow abolished the Office of the Civil Rights in the AG's office. That was laughably wrong, factually incorrect, but somehow reporters picked up on it. There's 12 individuals that work in the Office of Civil Rights. We've replaced 2 individuals. We have active cases that are going on. And I was a little bit incredulous at the number of reporters that, based on a tweet from somebody who didn't even have the basic facts, like I said, it got halfway around the world before the truth puts its pants on the morning. It was a good teachable lesson for me, which is in today's social media age, how quickly bad information can get out there. And I've often said the best way to fight bad information is good information. I'm still working my way through that on particularly in today's social media age. But yeah, I would consider fighting anti-Semitism one of the core missions of the Civil Rights Division. I've already talked to our deputy in the Civil Division oversees the Civil Rights Division. We're putting in place the new director of the Civil Rights Division. I think she is starting this week, or I'm losing track of my day. She may be starting on Monday. But it's intact. There are active cases I've already been briefed on. And we're going to continue to add that. And so, yeah, there's a lot that we could do in that realm to combat it and to focus on it, and to also use the bully pulpit of the office to talk about it. Because like I said, sometimes I think the media ignores it and doesn't kind of sweeps it under the rug, unfortunately.
So one more question, and then we'll let you know because I know you've got a full date. You probably feel like you've been in office for 3 years at this point. So on college campuses, and I happen to be on one, I'm a professor at one, there is a conflict often between hate speech and free speech. Is there, and sometimes that hate speech is anti-Semitic speech. That's a tough issue to tackle. And I'm wondering if there is a place that your office can weigh in on that, even if it's the bully pulpit place as much as anything else.
Well, listen, you don't have to, just like you don't have a right to go into a movie theater and shout fire. That's not considered speech, that's considered action. And so I think like everything else, when you look at Supreme Court law and jurisprudence on free speech, that there's a balancing test. Now, I'm a passionate believer in free speech. I believe in the marketplace of ideas. I also don't believe that you have a right to go on a college campus and try to incite violence either. So like everything else, you're going to have to look at what is a directive and what is a nature. The bigots that showed up at UVA with tiki torches, shouting that out, A, they were trespassing, B, they weren't students, and C, they weren't protected under, in my opinion, they had no First Amendment rights and whatsoever. I've heard different reports of people on college campuses not dealing with, set aside the anti-Semitism, that's its own separate category, but just college students that feel like they haven't been able to express their political views on campus, that I take that very seriously. So, you look at the case-by-case basis, but what happened in Charlottesville in 2017 was one of the darkest days in Virginia history. It was pure bigotry, it was pure hatred. Most of them were out of state. I have pointed that out. The media wanted to try to portray Virginians in this negative light. Believe it or not, the report I saw, a good chunk of them came from Ohio of all places. So they were obviously Virginians there, but they were not all Virginians. But what they all were they were bigots. They went on campus solely for the reason to intimidate and strike fear in the hearts. I go back to what Clarence Thomas said on a really critical U.S. Supreme Court decision based on cross-burning, where he said, that wasn't, cross-burning isn't free speech. That was essentially about intimidation and terror, and rightly so. So you look at those balance, but for a bigot to go on college campus with a tiki torch and try to be under the mantle of free speech in the First Amendment, that's just that flies against my personal beliefs. It flies against, I think, Supreme Court jurisprudence as well. So, and I think there's a lot in our office we could tackle on that front.
Great. Well, I know you guys have a busy day. We all very much appreciate the time you've given to us. We appreciate the enormous job that you have, and we appreciate your commitment to serving very much. And if there's anything we can do as a community to help you, then that's what we're here for.
Appreciate it. Thank you all so much. Look forward to seeing you on the trail ahead.
Thank you. So I'm going to next introduce the Governor of Virginia. So Governor Youngkin, welcome. I'm Quentin Kidd, a member of the UJCVP Board and Community Relations Committee member, and I'm honored to be able to introduce you this morning to the Jewish community of Virginia. Glenn Allen Youngkin was elected Virginia's 74th governor this past November and took office only a few weeks ago. He may still be living out of boxes for all I know. It's been such a busy time. Governor Youngkin was born in Richmond and grew up in the Richmond area and then Virginia Beach. He graduated from Norfolk Academy and attended Rice University on a basketball scholarship, where he earned an engineering degree. He subsequently earned the MBA from Harvard Business School. After Harvard, Governor Youngkin and his wife Susan moved to Northern Virginia. He landed a job at the Carlyle Group, where he spent the next 25 years. Working his way to the top of the company, Governor Youngkin played a key role in building Carlyle into one of the leading investment firms in the world. His efforts have helped fund the retirements of teachers, police officers, firefighters, and other frontline public servants, and supported hundreds of thousands of American jobs. It is safe to say that Governor Youngkin brings a wealth of experience to Capitol Square Governor Youngkin, welcome to Jewish Advocacy Day. We're honored to have you.
Great. Thank you, Quentin. And it's quite a pleasure to be with you. And I absolutely want to first let you know how much I appreciate being invited to join you. And this is a moment for me to share just some general thoughts and some very specific actions that we've taken, but also for us to continue what I think has been a great exchange of ideas and shared values and hope for our future. So, you know, the Judeo-Christian values of Virginia are older than Jamestown. And in fact, these are the values that I think underpin so much of what we collectively want to make sure we provide freedom for. And I, in fact, recognize that we as Virginians had the great privilege of celebrating our 236th anniversary of the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom. And that's why on day one, I signed Executive Order number 8, which is to establish a commission to, in fact, combat anti-Semitism. And I'll talk more about that. But I think we are at a moment where we continue to see hate crimes and rhetoric across not just the Commonwealth, but our nation that is beyond the words unacceptable. It's divisive, and we're going to go to work as Virginians in order to combat it. It's been a busy 2 weeks, 2 weeks and a few days, and I am just so honored to be serving all Virginians. I've said over and over again, I'm having a ball. And as I stepped out of my business career during the summer of 2020 in order to go serve all Virginians, I felt an enormous calling that we could do this together, as opposed to what I saw as an increasingly divisive moment in politics. And so we have pressed forward to try to represent all Virginians. And that's why this discussion that we're about to have, particularly, I think, to make sure that we are protecting religious freedom on one hand, but also combating hate crimes on the other, is so important. You know, as you all well know, there's 100,000 Virginians of the Jewish faith and culture. And I believe this is a moment for us to lock arms and press forward on a number of initiatives that I think have gone unrecognized, and therefore the opportunity is great. Let me just start also with an introduction, although she's not on the call with us, to our Chief Diversity, Opportunity, and Inclusion Officer, Angela Saylor. I appointed Angela last week. She is a cabinet level, it's a cabinet level position. And I'm very excited about the work that Angela is going to do to represent all Virginians. And Quentin, just picking up from your most recent question, part of this is to really stand up on university campuses for both free speech, but also for respect. And I think this is going to be a very important part of Angela's responsibilities in this most important role. When I signed Executive Order number 8, it particularly focused on establishing a commission to combat anti-Semitism. And this commission is moving quickly. We have now communicated the specific profile of the commission makeup. We'll have 5 representatives of the Jewish faith, at least 2 leaders of other communities of faith, 1 Commonwealth's attorney, 1 local chief law enforcement officer, 1 representative from the Virginia Holocaust Museum, which I think is incredibly important, and up to 3 experts in anti-Semitism, de-radicalization, or domestic terrorism. This commission will in fact start naming commission members here soon. And in fact, we want to have a majority, if not all of the commission appointed over the course of the next 10 days. And then we will hold our first meeting by the end of February. I've said many times, we work in real people time, not government time. I believe the portal will be open either today or first thing tomorrow morning to make sure that we're accepting all applicants. We've already been contacted by many, many people who are eager to serve on this commission. You know, the commission's primary role is to advise me and our office on pressing forward with protecting people of the Jewish faith and heritage. And I fully expect the commission to do great work broadly, but specifically, we have identified a need to make sure that we are adopting the international definition of anti-Semitism, that we are in fact not just speaking up against, but opposing any effort to bring the BDS philosophy or actions into Virginia. We will continue to support and advocate for the relationship that Virginia has with Israel, both from a religious and cultural standpoint, but also from a business standpoint. And in fact, I think there is real opportunity for us to take that relationship even further. I also want to be clear that this is a moment for us, and I was able to listen to the Attorney General. This is a moment for us to broadly speak to the absolute unacceptability and to denounce any kind of hate. And I do believe that we have all of a sudden collectively as Americans become almost too accepting of hate. And so you will continue to hear from me the denouncing of any kind of hate crime across any factor, but particularly when it comes to anti-Semitism. I also want to very clearly highlight the opportunities that I think that we have in education. I also signed an executive order that works to remove practices from our schools that are divisive. And those practices are clearly defined. They're defined as practices that in fact suggest that someone's race, religion, or sex makes them superior or inferior to others. That in fact we should judge one another based on their race, their religion, or their sex. Again, that's divisive, and we should remove it from our schools. That any suggestion that characteristics like working hard are inherently racist will in fact be removed from curriculum, and that we can press forward with a recognition that we should provide opportunity for all Virginians, and that particularly teaching Virginians that one group is superior or another group is inferior based again on their race, their religion, or their sex is divisive, and we will not have it in our schools. I also included in that executive order executive action for our Department of Education to review our history curriculum, to make sure that we're teaching all of our history, the good and the bad. That includes the fact that we should teach the Holocaust. There is a clear need for all Virginians to understand our history, and we can put in context our current lives, but also, as I've said frequently, we can't know where we're going unless we know where we have all come from. And so this is a moment for us, I think, to unite around topics that have been difficult ones. And I am so pleased to be partnered with Winsome Earle-Sears as our Lieutenant Governor and Jason Miyares as our Attorney General, and members from both sides of our House of Delegates and our Senate in working towards these ends. Finally, it all fits in the context of our day one game plan. And we were hired, is the way I consistently describe it. We were hired to come to Richmond by Virginians. And we received more votes from minority communities than a Republican has had in memory. Arguably, with the reports that we won the Latino vote and we won the Asian vote, we received more votes from the from the Black community than any Republican has. We received extraordinary turnout across the Valley in Southwest Virginia. We ended up winning Greater Richmond. We won Greater Hampton Roads. We received 42% of the vote in Northern Virginia. And we were sent by Virginians, not by Republicans, because we did win the independent votes and won an extraordinary percentage of Democrat votes. The net of all of this, however, is we won with 50.6% of the vote, not 60. And I'm very aware of the fact that we are here together to work in a fashion where we find those most important topics and we work to achieve them. Virginians felt, based on all that I have heard and experienced on the campaign trail, but also in our first 2 weeks plus in office, that reducing the cost of living and getting our taxes down and reinvigorating our schools with expectations of excellence and having the largest education budget, making sure that we're investing in teachers and we're investing in curriculum and we're investing in programs for Virginians with disabilities. That in fact, we recognize that innovation in K through 12 education is critical. And the initiatives to launch lab schools in partnership with the colleges and universities across Virginia to bring that innovative curriculum is incredibly important. Our initiative on lab schools and cooperating and partnering with both universities and colleges, but also with school boards and parents and teachers and students is receiving bipartisan support. And it's very important that we get this initiative done to introduce innovation into our public school systems. It doesn't take funding away from the public school system, it adds funding to them. And this is a great opportunity for us to collaborate on education initiatives in Virginia. We are moving forward with a number of pieces of legislation in order to make sure our communities are safe, and training, and finally, we have a massive effort to review and cut job-killing regulations. We have a massive effort to coordinate and stimulate workforce development across Virginia, and so that all Virginians have a chance to take great jobs in a growing economy. And we have a real effort to make sure that we're stimulating small business. Small business has really suffered over the last couple of years, particularly, and continues to. And so we need to go to work for small business to get small businesses growing. It's the bedrock of our communities. So we have a lot of work to do. And I'm eager and excited that we have gotten off to a strong start. And again, Quentin, thank you for allowing me to join you in this most important effort that we see the Jewish community advocating for. So thank you.
So thank you very much, Governor. We really appreciate your time and know that you are running late for your next appointment, but thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Everyone, my name is Beth Mitchell, and it is a pleasure to serve along with my friend Bob Budoff as a co-chair of the JCRC of Greater Washington's Northern Virginia Commission. And we want to thank all of you for joining us this morning. Your participation is a crucial part of our public policy dialogue, and the power of your advocacy is immeasurable. Together, our voices are powerful as we work towards strengthening our community and our institutions. I especially want to thank Governor Youngkin, Lieutenant Governor Earl Sears, and Attorney General Miyares for taking the time to speak with our communities today as their terms get underway. We look forward to working with them throughout the next 4 years. Thank you also to the staff from our 4 regions, Elka Mednick, Robin Mancull from the Tidewater area, Steve Wendell and Jeff Luckman from the Peninsula, David Cohen from Richmond, and Vicki Fitchman from Northern Virginia. Their work is what allows us to be heard. We hope you all have enjoyed the program, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. And I've been told that if you have questions, we will take those questions if you've posted them and put them to the individual who you wanted those directed to, and then we'll be back in touch with you. So thank you all again for your time, and we're ending on time. So have a good day, everybody, and thank you.